All right, so we want to discuss and decode the origins of, cosmic entities and all these different colored furry beings and beings of light, literally, sometimes beings of darkness, literally, right? We want to start to decode what does that mean? Like, what is the average person in the spiritual community, which actually appears to be pseudo, but really it isn't pseudo because that's just someone else's objectivity with their subjectivity. So when you start to understand where someone else is coming from, which I'm about to explain, you start to be able to understand, oh, okay, this is why some people will decide to create a species called the reptilians and represented and tell you, oh, these guys, this is this alien group, and oh, look, this is the furries, and look, these are the blue wolves, and whatever cosmic alien species that you make, anyways, right? Because at the end of the day, all these things is just really, truly, originally, if you look at it from the purest perspective, is really just properties, right? And when certain properties are used to an extreme, that ends up being a side on the pendulum, right? And when you're dealing with a 360 pendulum, you have like literally like species next to other groups of species. Even when you look at our reality, how plants and species develop to subspecies, and how plants develop to subspecies, and later on, even in our modern era, we can talk about how there's like the hybrid vegetables, hybrid animals, and all these things. So it's not about right or wrong as in terms of is engineering food wrong? No, but it could. But you could kill some people if you engineer food in a messed up way. Is natural, organic foods that already existed when we existed good? Well, that just depends on what your definition of good is and what type of effect you're trying to have. But point being is that no species is like good and evil, right? That's kind of like the old argument of white people or some shit like that trying to have some form of superior objective morality or some black nigger slave or some shit like that, which I'm black, so I'm able to say that, so it's that real shit. Anyways, or vice versa, a black person thinking that they're superior. In this community, you have a lot of people talking about black people as gods, blah blah blah, all these things. But you gotta understand that all these things are just representing different side of the spectrum of the light spectrum we're talking about, and each group of people literally carry a particular spectrum or of energy. Some people is more some people harness more static energy. Some people harness more. That just means moving. Some people harness more solid energy, which just means things that are slowed down that don't really move as much. What I mean, but I mean by that, we're talking about the left and right brain spectrum, right? So when we talk about a river being static, that's something that moves, right? We're talking about an energy that's moving. What is water? Water has to do with the realm of the right brain, has to do with feelings, has to do with the upside down blue triangle, right? And then when we talk about solid, we're talking about things like rocks, which actually just happens to deal with the realm of practicality, which actually just happens to deal with that other realm, right? Practicality, solid. Think about rocks. Rocks are solid and things like that. What are the earth signs? Taurus, Virgo. What are the Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn? Yeah, yeah. But and they all deal with what? The earth virtue or energy, just from a different perspective and a different just a different modality. But uh, you know, just different behaviors and things like that make up that sector of the energy. When we talk about aliens, really, we're talking about the same concept. We're talking about the same thing, just from a different lens, different perspective. So when you see people online presenting you with like, oh look, these are the reptilians. All the reptilians is just left brain beings and things like that. If you want to be a complete person, you gotta use your left brain and your right brain, and depending on where side on the planet you was born on, you're gonna be exposed to on a percentage level certain light since you're on a relative point, and depending on how well you can pinpoint that, you sort of understand, okay, there's certain energies that we're experiencing based on our geographical location and things like that, and down to even, but more importantly than the geographical location, that's important too, where you are, obviously, because you gotta know where you're at to know where you want to fucking go and shit like that. You subconsciously already know where you are at, and subconsciously you already know where you want to go. But sometimes we be not using that brain mechanism in our advantage. We'll be using that shit to bring our own detriment, right? Because your brain don't really care what type of energies you put in there, and based on these people that is harnessing more of the left brain spectrum, was just being able to create a form to encapsulate static energy, shall I the concept, you can encapsulate your attention, which is basically harness the energy, they're able to control the matrix from that realm of reality, right? But as soon as you're able to create a wave of energy, you can easily shake up the form that they created. But see, when you're like a transmuter, when you're like an alchemist, you start to understand, oh, okay, I can just start to do this with this energy. I can do this with this energy. I can do this with this energy. You know, or you can. That's looking at it from a left brain perspective, being objective reality, right? Or you can just trust the spirit, and the spirit will guide you, depending on what side of things you are on, right? 'Cause it's not about right or wrong. It's just about where a person is at spiritually and how wise they is. Because yeah, it gets really deep in these goddamn esoteric dimensions and shit like that. But yeah, when we talk about just aliens in general, we just talk about virtues and principles. We talk about literally temperaments of behavior that sometimes may be taken far, right? And then, like I said, give you the examples of animals and plants. We develop into subspecies. So, for example, everyone in Africa or Americana is like black, but it's like different types of black within the black family. You know what I'm saying? Just like how you can look at the color black, and you can probably an artist can put in front of you different modes of that black, or just different saturations or whatever they do of that black, or purple or red and things like that, right? And when you have these, when you have certain phenotypes and things like that, which is it's just your genetic imprint, your DNA based on the species, you know, fuck around and you know, organize and create communities and develop or die by another species, and they take over your shit and shit like that. You know, we just basically sometimes develop like subspecies of that, even like, you know, even like I said, having sexual intercourse with another, you know, groups of people. They could be anywhere on the spectrum. They could be lighter than you. They could be anything. It just starts to modify who you are and shit like that. So even when we are on Earth here, we experience, like I said, the racism earlier, right? Like a black person versus a white person, they might develop mentality like, oh, I'm superior. Same thing with these subspecies and groups, and same thing with these cosmic races and things like that. Because really, like, we are actually experiencing like the trickle down effect of that racism and shit like that. So it's really, we just developing our minds to be able to deal with these virtues and principles, which is just like that can happen through circumstances, situations, events at certain times and things like that. Because even with these planets, these satellites and things like that, they be, let's just say, directing certain energies at certain times and things like that. When you understand that, you're able to alter the wave, alter your own personal wave, first of all, because really you are already that which you look at as above you. You are already that inside of you. And basically what we doing is we basically just replacing these systems, these organs, with like a different mental metabolic process, a different trains of thoughts and feelings. And when you as an observer is writing that train of thoughts and feelings, that will eventually become a fluid, become a body, become a cell, and things like that. Because that's what we do when we like creating waves, and then we collapse them into particles. So us as a whole group of spirits, that each person has their own relative position. And when you have your own relative position, you are also influenced by a different group of virtues and principles, which is just basically what these people be talking about as aliens. That's what these Greeks be talking about as like Orion, you know, in the sky and shit like that. You'd be influenced by virtues and principles. You'd be influenced by like real beings out there. Like we just like cells inside of this being's heart, and we learning and we becoming more aware. And it's like the whole universe is like just like that. Like it's groups trying to take over other groups. It's just like same shit you see on Earth is the same shit going on up there, just on some way harder shit. You probably got some way harder like gear and gadgets and all types of shit, but mental gadgets though, because like you can go out there and get scared and come back down here with like new fears and shit like that. So all you doing is you're trying to develop a sufficient enough mind spaceship so you can go into that realm of reality, and you can be born out there in the sixth dimension and shit like that. But first, we already did the first and second dimension around thoughts and feelings to the third dimension. Now we're learning about the fourth and fifth dimension, learning to go into the sixth dimension. So right now we're like in the 5D shift and shit like that. So we're learning how to manage our feelings and things like that. Sometimes we may have feelings that we're not managing and things like that. So you can either be on the low end of the spectrum or the high end of the spectrum. You always got to remember the superior species is always going to rule over the lower species and things like that. So we can all be inside of human vessels, but if I'm in my human vessel and I'm more aware of what's going on to a larger degree than you, then I can create a thought and a feeling, a magic net, by first creating a magic carpet. A magic carpet is just being able to create, to be able to astral project, to create a thought and a feeling, and to be able to take that into outer space, right? And then you basically send out like a further light. So now you're capturing and ensnaring properties and shit like that. So you're able to create a wider thought and feeling. You're able to create something wider of scope, an angle nobody really saw before, or a higher octave feeling, and things like that. So that's why we all gotta train our minds subconsciously to become aware of what's going on around us, not just in terms of just this 3D environment in all levels. But that's the thing though, when you train your space, you take that space with you everywhere. So just, let's say for example, I meditate, right? I spend 10 minutes per day being in the space of clairvoyance, right? And I accumulate that space. I'll be able to take that space not just with me in the realm of my thoughts and feelings, because thoughts and feelings you're dealing with man and woman as well. Thoughts and feelings have their own lifespan, but they expire way faster. You ain't nothing but a thought and a feeling that's just passing by, and you gonna expire too. So real shit. But it'd be deep. Real shit. But anyways, I'm gonna get into it later. Peace out, y'all.